earlier last week, maybe, or passage, and it was deceptively when you'll find flaws in it.
It has some creativity though, to be fair.
Yes, I've been reading a 440-page annual report.
Is that a day job or a bit longer?
No, that's you'll go insane if you did it all in a day. So I did 40 pages this time, and 60 pages, 70 pages this morning. Try and do another 80 this afternoon.
Sorry, I was thinking we were
Can you take this? Yeah, I'd like to crack it today if I can, but whether.
These are these generated.
How do you handle situations today of actions in the financial world? Good. How do you fit investment financial clients for different pictures?
Let's put chairs down and leave you under chairs. Yeah, on the chairs.
I hope, yes. I hope that other people get their questions.
Of course, yeah, I'll prioritize them.
Easier ones.
Yeah.
That's the back of ones. Yeah, we had our first event yesterday. We had a good turnout. I'd say the room like this was. We had a philosopher from Oxford. Who spoke business. But yeah, we're just hoping
Huge backpack like that.
I was actually planning to go to St. Helens today. We're doing the city event. Yeah. So I might match up there afterwards. Marvin who runs
St. Helens. We'll see, yeah. Energy.
It does, yeah. And I can't remember the other guy's name, but there's an insurance guy who's also very involved.
Maybe what that's there, just so you can around, like if they're sat on that table.
I don't know who that would be. That's not even right.
Actually, you might not know him because he only attends the Tuesday.
Yeah, maybe they're right.
Yeah, I've been to St. Helens. I'm upset about it. I've never actually been to it. You've been there for
38 months.
Yeah.
No, what you did, I'm sick of the episode. That's the
Like the other chat. It only came to me.
Demographic 32. So
Take two from this table, they're very much.
2 children.
Okay.
And now started to get old.
Okay.
10 a.m. Good age range. Yeah, sure, yeah. So space them out. Because the chairs happens.
I feel like it's on the face of like rows.
Yeah.
So we want them to keep like looking like rows. So
Yeah.
as long as there's enough of us.
I've been to the midweek a few times. My house is looking at all sorts.
So what's the size? Some differentiating cups for hot drinks.
Some actually people. Yeah. Have you always worked in the city? Or like in London?
Yeah, I was in Luxembourg for a couple of years.
Okay.
So,
Nice. So you like it? You're happy with it?
yeah, I'm a company.
We want to store this stuff behind that table over there.
Okay. Yeah.
Glad it's
Sound.
Still to come.
maybe.
Yeah.
No, I like it. So it's been like so much. James is it? It's like,
Yeah, it's very convenient.
it's, street. It's,
Yeah.
really.
Oh,
You there?
yeah. Securities.
Okay to get.
Sorry, I'm not.
Yeah.
Josephine.
Yeah, that's good.
City is.
Yeah, and just not the role that you're in now. It's that. It's not the.
I still want to
Separate to the company or which still calls like.
You know,
And the team do, would you be there or is the non-executive like a separate body? That's how I've understood like.
Honestly, it's like a guy. One has a board of governors.
It's like feelings and shapes.
yeah. It's just like a slow decline.
That, that was my arrival.
Maybe we're
That's not how
responsible.
to get it. I don't think it's fine.
Yeah, he is.
Like, do you work a lot with the people at UBS or is it more with the board?
Sorry, how did it is?
So I probably do. Well, yes, I probably do.
You guys heard about the other one?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been out with.
So.
I'm excited to hear this because, I feel like it's very well. Yeah, good. Did you enjoy yesterday's? It's a good week with like a lot on, isn't it? Yeah, true. So much. Yeah. It's good to.
Yeah, of course.
During.
Yeah.
You're referring to.
Do you think really friends would be interested?
Just referring to.
You.
Combination.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, people are like, mind, yeah. Just in case people are like, don't think too much about it. Yeah. Yeah. That's all right.
Hospitality and
Yeah.
because if they are, that's good.
Yeah.
Clients coming in.
Okay,
So it's just.
That's that this room is yeah, it's an as it's like got a lesson in it, and as like not like when we came in yesterday. It was like, yeah, true. It's not like a bit more of an open space. There's no students.
Not gonna lie, I really.
It comes much more like a. Chair as opposed to it's.
All like marketing, understanding.
Yeah, I think people are yeah.
Whereas like the corruption on their estates.
What's the requirement to be in the office? How in the office or?
I'm not a student,
I never work.
I help out with the student stuff, so.
Sort of around. To be in the.
Is that right?
Taking in the office.
It's very.
All
right, yeah.
So I just go to work.
I go to like.
Just go to-
Oh,
I'm just thinking. Yeah. I think they're on the right hand side there.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, thank you.
Depending on the day.
Depending on, definitely, depending who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
How are you
Yeah.
going?
I was one
You missed the question.
You just focus. No, I'm improving, My grandma just moved over to the UK and she doesn't speak a word of English, so I go home and I'm like. Yeah. Right, so that's really how much people got it.
How can I help to pizza?
With my friends.
Hi, friends.
When's your music? When?
No, we're not talking about that.
You need to tell me when your music video is out.
So cute. I love cute. So cute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just Tuesday. Valentine's Day, and then I pass all the stalls down there, and they're all like.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so I'm studying management research. I'm from Wigan. Yeah. So yeah.
Is somebody coming here?
No, no. And so
My girlfriend's
kind of navigate
so like
to go to startup.
okay, so I'm like, maybe I should flip it around. I'll buy like I call it
Until I learned to consider contingency. Potentially you can do that. I really
Yeah,
want
we
to
can get pizza.
the website.
I'm kind of like put myself in ideas and things because my initial degree
Basically, I said no one of it.
so much the ideas. Also start business.
Very vicious email the website, email the person, it's just like, it's just so so to make up for it, she sent my girlfriend a second one of it.
So good.
Yeah, we did that opportunity. No, it's cool. Okay, after the
I quite like it.
So what are you sketching using?
And then we're a lot of interaction.
So part of me wants to like, everyone's saying that we should go to architecture and all the time. I really want to like run my own business and do that kind of thing. I'll definitely use my art as a gift to apply to whether it's creativity or something.
No, I keep it a study.
Like I'm going to these cities.
Maybe get
Start to go to university.
I just so I framed my. I think one of the things that
yeah.
You still have 3 years to.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
How long is it going to be?
So you study business? Did you study business? Oh, IT. Okay, so you so you were on one.
No, I'm a lawyer. Yeah.
No, it's very.
Trying to integrate law. Family laws.
Yeah.
Last year.
So definitely, I'll need to make.
Friendly law, yes.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so you've done it. Yeah. Because you use programming or so much anyway.
But I have 1 year is lesser time. It's gonna be here only for a year.
It just depends whereabouts.
It's gonna be here only for 1 year, so that's too lesser time.
Usually.
So I'll have 3 years.
Yeah, the other 3 days after.
And then my
Yeah, that's right. First time I heard. Yeah. You're not expect yourself.
Oh, no.
I've got a friend that's really good. Director of see you. Yeah. So you were first year? Yeah. You don't look like this. Yeah. I find finance. Yeah. You from the UK?
I want to be a positive.
No way. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know what they can know. So I've lived in Newport for 17 years. So born and bred. Born and bred South Wales. I used to live in Aberystwyth for so whenever you're until the age of like 5, if you want to work, you don't have a Welsh accent. I can understand. Yeah, it's more. That's good. Broke people off. Pull people's clothes. Say that and then. Yeah, that's a big change. You might be president of the UK or
Yeah.
I know.
I think yours have a lot of good.
Did you? Yeah. So you probably do IR? Yeah, IR. Yeah.
And you need to manage
Not far from the beach. It's in the.
Don't worry, you still have a lot of time. You enjoy yourself. Still a baby, 19 years.
Welsh speakers, you don't normally do. Okay. Yeah, okay. Because yeah. Which school did you go to? Yeah. I went to a primary school. I did go to a primary school. It was the one my geography, so not far from the marsh. No, not far from the
Oh, I thought it was great. I know all my friends will learn. I think the way he resolved like the problems, like not say resolved, but like the way he tackled like problems. Oh, that's very good. I need to hello.
I just can't go there. You didn't. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, you know, I think just.
So mine is attached to a company.
Yeah.
No, mine is. Work-life balance of having lost. I'm scared to start, but I'm doing law for permission. Yeah.
I think there's no like.
Even you guys have a dissertation, right?
You just say when.
Yeah, just go. Doing economics in the Beck University.
Definitely not. Can you believe? Yeah, like. Economics, right?
Oh my goodness, no. I'd never do something like that. Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to day 2 of CU's Events Week. Today the theme is success. So joining us is Jeremy Anderson. He's had a record in success in financial services. He was the chairman of KPMG's Global Financial Services, and he's now the senior independent director of UBS Group. So Jeremy will give us a short talk. It'll be about 20 minutes, and then there'll be a Q&A time, another 20 minutes, and then feel free to stay around for more pizza, refreshments, and yeah, enjoy.
Good, right, well, good to see everybody. Nice to see a few familiar faces in the audience as well. And I hate the sound of my own voice. I'd much rather have conversation. So please, will you get some questions going? Feel free to interrupt me, but I promised I would just do sort of 15, 20 minutes at the beginning to sort of set the scene. And it's a great topic, isn't it? Success, how will you define it? I guess it is personal to us. We sort of feel it every day. And it is also probably quite provocative. I'd be really interested to go around the room, see all the different views, and we're in an academic institution, so I'd expect you to disagree with each other and debate it as well. But what I really want to do is just tell you a bit of story about how my views of success have changed over 40 years. Before we do that, though, I want to give you a question to think about, which we'll come back to at the end. So, if you were going to define success now, how would you do it? Would you do it in the world's eyes? Fame, fortune, influence, career, money? Would you do it around other people's expectations? Expectations of friends, expectations of parents. I see one of the patients in the room. I know what that feels like. Expectations of sort of society generally. Do you want to design it around yourself? Do you want to do a startup? I gather that's what Josh wants to do. Do you want to go and do regenerative farming in New Zealand? Do you just want to focus around spending your life surfing and mountaineering? Or do you actually want to try and find success in terms of some sort of worldview which you hold? I guess my story is how I went from number 1 in the world's view to number 4, the world's eyes to number 4. How do I sort of align and think about success now in my worldview as a Christian? So let's go back sort of 40 years and think about what I was like then. Hard to imagine, I know. But, and what my sort of thinking was around what a worldview was. Well, I guess probably career. So I have friends who are CEOs of banks, who chair financial services companies, who sit on some of the world's largest corporations, who have done their startups. I was having coffee with a friend the other day. He hopes he'll float his in 2 years' time and might just be a unicorn. So there's your aspiration, Josh. They run their own PE companies who are at the top of their sort of profession in terms of science, medicine, law, economics. And, you know, that is one way I guess I was sort of thinking of one axis, if you like, what I was thinking about. Number two, inevitably, is the trappings of success, isn't it? So I have friends who have large houses or country estates or ski chalets in Verbier or holiday homes in Nantucket or in the Hamptons or in the Caribbean or in Tuscany or in Bali. They had a barn full of supercars. They have a look into here and there. And maybe third was around family, which certainly used to be one for me. And I used to get very jealous of all my friends who seem to have, I guess, people like you a bit, but the sort of children who are brilliant scholars, fantastic linguists, captained all their sports teams, and some who even do all of that at the same time. So that was definitely not my children, but there we are. Those were, so, you know, I wasn't age 25 ambitious enough to think that that was really what I was going to be able to sort of achieve. But if you'd asked me what was success for me then, it was definitely around those sorts of different axes. So where are we 40 years later, applying a Christian worldview to success, which is what I will tell you that this has been a journey for me. Those of you who are Christians will sort of know that it's always a journey. It's hard to let go of the world's sort of aspirations and what the world thinks, isn't it? I am a typical type A insecure overachiever. Got any of those in the room? Yes, everybody nods. So, you know, not only do I want to do things well, but actually I used to want to really be seen by others to do things well. So where am I getting my affirmation and my security? Well, because my colleagues, my friends think Jeremy's doing a good job. Whereas actually now, you know, I'm really looking to say, does God think I'm doing a good job? Yes or no? And if you go back to where was I on a list of, you know, fantastic career, big houses, family, that has sort of morphed. So 40 years later, what has changed, I guess you could say. So number one would be, how am I going to use my resources? And starting to get those aligned with what I sort of see as God's priorities. So that would mean time, no longer just work, me, but actually carving out time to support these sort of Christian organizations and charities which I'm involved with. They're doing great work. They've got a sort of vision. How can I help those? It may be around time with people. Those of you who are Christians will know it's no walk in the park. So am I actually taking time out to encourage other Christians? Am I taking time out to talk to my friends who've never heard about Christianity or thought about it, just to sort of explore a little bit about what it means and provoke them to think about it a little bit, I guess, as we're doing today. And then for my children, well, of course, I want them to be happy and content and fulfilled and healthy and know where their next slice of pizza is coming from. But actually, what I really want is I want them to be Christians. Thankfully, they are now, but that's not been the case all the time. And I want them to stay that for the rest of their lives. And then I guess number three has been really my own attitude has had to change and how it's gone from success defined as all the things I've got, as to actually being as content as I can be with whatever God happens to throw my way, whether that is good or bad. And there are lots of good things in this world to enjoy. I don't want to get that wrong at all. But whether it is good health, bad health, whether it's things going well or badly in the things I'm involved with, then just be content with what God's given me. So you might ask, does that sound like a change to you? Yes, okay. I see at least one nod at back. Thank you. Okay, so that's the change. So what is the story behind it? I'll tell you the secular story first, and we will do a little bit about the worldview. So I was born in Penang, Malaysia in the late 1950s, came to the UK in the early 1960s, brought up in a small village in rural Wiltshire, so 100 miles or so west of here. I've got no idea where west is, but that way at the moment, but west of here. Came to London to do an economics degree at UCL. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I expect to be swallowed up into the that stage. I have to say, who's doing economics here? Okay. Good, courageous. I can't say I enjoyed it that much. Pages and pages of differential equations. The most interesting thing I did, of course, was to work on a cost-benefit analysis for a new London airport at Maplin Sands on the Thames estuary. But you can see that was a failure because here we are 40 years later and we still have Heathrow with only 2 runways. But there you go. But I did do part of my final year with computer science and really enjoyed it, the sort of problem solving. So I went into IT, did IT for 5 years, building systems for banks and financial institutions, wanted a broader career, so went into business consulting, joined KPMG's global and UK financial services consulting practice, and did that for much of the next 35 years. A couple of years out, when we sold a business that I was running, some government advisory work on the side, a principal doing that, and as Josh said, last 8 years running or chairing the global financial services practice, which was a great privilege, absolutely fun, really enjoyed it. Did spend most of my life on an aeroplane, unfortunately. And then I left there at the end of 2017, joined the board of UBS in 2018, where I chair the audit committee and I'm senior independent director. Joined the Prudential Insurance Company in the same sort of capacity in 2020. I chair the risk committee and I'm just taking over as senior independent director. So that is the secular bit. Now let's go for the worldview bit. So I was not brought up in a particularly Christian household, but I was taken to church. If you'd asked me at the age of 14 or 15, did I believe in God? The answer would have been yes. But if you'd looked at my lifestyle, you wouldn't have known it. And then I came to London with all the fabulous things that London has and completely forgot about anything Christian at all. Wind forward 5 years and I hit a problem. And the problem was, I have to say, I rather fancied a girl, but she wouldn't go out with me. And I thought, well, I thought we were friends. Why wouldn't we go out for a date? I'd say, well, Jeremy, it's very clear. I'm a committed Christian. I like to live alongside my beliefs. You've got no idea what Christianity is, and you certainly don't live one. So anyway, to cut a long story short, I ended up going to a church, going to a weekly group that met and actually looked at, worked their way through a book called, written by a guy called Mark, which is sort of eyewitness accounts of the life and times of Jesus Christ. And I think 6 weeks later, I just thought, this is a complete revelation to me. Now, if you'd asked me at that stage, what did I think Christianity was all about based on my background, I would have thought, I'm a good person. Every now and then, I'd like to do something to help other people and do something that's sort of good, to earn a few brownie points with God. And a few times a year, I might go to church because it made me feel virtuous and might bring a smile to God's. And I suddenly realized that was completely the wrong way around. Look at this. That actually Christianity is all about a relationship between us and God. And how was me as a very flawed human actually going to have any sort of relationship with a perfect creator God? And realizing there's nothing I could do about it, but actually the only person who could do something about that was God, and that by sending his son Jesus onto the earth and to die, he had actually fixed the problem for me. So instead of what's Jeremy going to do to earn some brownie points and what's Jeremy going to do for God, it was completely turned around. What God had already done for me, and what am I going to do about that? And so that was the challenge. Do I believe this as true? And am I going to accept it? And the answer to both of those, uncomfortably, for my lifestyle, was yes and yes. And so that inevitably meant sort of changing priorities. And so that's where the journey starts. It's a challenging to change those sorts of things, particularly when you're midlife, as it were. But ever since then, it's been a journey of how do I sort of reduce the world's view of success in terms of what I'm doing with things, and how do I bring up and elevate what is actually success and priorities in God's eyes. So what did that mean? Well, I think it meant, as I've said a bit already, about changes in how I use my time, where I set my priorities, how I use my money. It affected, as I say, my attitude on what I see as success in terms of family and friends are concerned. And I guess it also meant that I had to change some of my attitude. And in another of the eyewitness accounts of Jesus, they by a guy called Matthew, it says, I've got my glasses on, so you have to excuse me. Don't lay up treasures on earth where they'll be destroyed by moths or by rust or by thieves. Lay up treasure in heaven where your lay up treasure in heaven where your treasure is. There your heart will be also. And I thought that what that was telling me was actually what I'm sort of doing with everything in my life needs to reflect what I now believe, and to a certain extent, what I believe is sort of simultaneously working on what I do, and what I do is sort of working on my belief. And so that was really what I was trying to do in terms of reorienting my priorities. And I have to tell you, it is much, much more satisfying and purposeful rather than competing with my friends about who has had a glass of Petrus 1964, or who's been on the most exotic holiday recently, or how good somebody's tennis swing is. And I even have a perverse satisfaction of telling friends that my Mercedes is 25 years old, not 25 days old. So that's a little bit of the story of where I am and what's behind it. So let's come back, if we may, to the question which I gave you at the beginning. What were the criteria that I used? You know, how are you going to think about the question you've got in terms of success? Is that the world's eyes, fame, fortune, power, influence, legacy? Is it going to be around other people's expectations of what you should do? Is it going to be very me-centered, what I want? Or is it going to be aligned with some sort of considered worldview? And I guess I say considered because, of course, I had a worldview when I was 25 years old. It's just I didn't know I had one because I had absorbed it. It was partly what Jeremy wanted, tempered by a lot of what Jeremy wanted, tempered a little bit by, I guess, what my parents had taught me and by some of the norms of the day. And I think that's very different from having a considered worldview where we thought about things and maybe it's aligned with a faith framework, in my case, Christianity, or actually where we've really thought it through and determined it what it is. And so, if you like, it is that placing what I view as success and priorities in the context of a Christian framework around a creator God and Son, Jesus Christ, that has really shifted that view of the sort of 40 years. And then as I finish, can I just say, if you've never thought about exploring Christianity before, can I encourage you to do it? A little sort of eyewitness account will really be a great place to start. I found it transformational. Even if you decided it wasn't true, I think you would really enjoy doing it. It is gripping reading. And I think you'll learn all sorts of things about Christianity, which maybe you didn't know before. It is, in this version, 47 pages, 16 short chapters. And at the end of this, I was able to sort of try and work through things like, so Jesus, was he a myth? Was he real in history? Work through, okay, all these sort of things which is reported to have done, could they have happened? And if I did think they were true, could they have happened unless he was somebody very special and the Son of God? Talks a lot about life and death and everlasting life and heaven. Gives you a chance to say, okay, so everybody knows he died. That's well recorded in history. Did he actually rise again? And then, of course, the big question, which is, who was Jesus? Was he just a good man and good teacher? Or was he actually the Son of God? So I guess that's, I don't know, your speed reader, 75 minutes to read. But much better, I would suggest, if you like to do it, read it with a Christian friend, put it into 4 or 5 chunks, sit down with a cup of coffee, read it to each other and discuss it. That's what I did. And because I'm intellectually lazy, it was much better than just reading it on my own. But anyway, that's a bit about me, my career, my secular life, what made me change, and how I view success a bit differently to how I did in 1984, which is when I became a Christian. Let's open the Q&A. Can I just ask you, please, Josh has got 3 questions up his sleeve, which I really don't want to have to answer. So if you've got better ones, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
So yeah, we have the Slido on the board. You can all scan it. You don't need to put a question. You can just upvote questions, or please add a question if you do have one. So yeah. Okay, so
The basis, we're a generation where we can't talk to each other. Is that right?
yeah. Okay, so the first question we have, Jeremy, is if my life is going great, should I bother with Christianity?
I would say absolutely yes. Number one is it's not going to go great forever. So what's going to win it? And Christianity, of course, is not about having a great life in this world. It is actually about what's going to happen when we die, and are we actually going to end up in a new world to come? Because the Bible says that God created a perfect world. We messed it up. That wasn't God's plan. God's plan is there will be a new perfect world. Do you want to be part of that or not? And so, however much fun you're having today, if you think there is going to be a new creation, you're not going to get into it on your own efforts. You're going to need God to help you. So I think, and as I said before, however much money you've got, however, having money or success won't make you fulfilled or happy. And I can tell you, having left a very big organization where I was very senior, I still have lots of KPMG friends around the world, but I will be forgotten by KPMG when this generation of leadership is gone. I will be completely forgotten. So if we're thinking that we're going to build earthly legacy, it's going to be very challenging, and you'll give it with mostly to the tax man. Okay. So does that not, if anybody wants to push back on it, by all means, happy to. But yes, now I mean, all I would say is, I had never thought about it before. It was a revelation to me. It won't take you more than a couple of hours to have a serious think about it. Why wouldn't you? Even if you say, no, I don't believe this, no, that's not.
Thank you. So how do you balance the need for financial stability and security with the call to generosity and sharing resources with others, as taught in the Bible?
You have to work hard. I have a friend, and I don't want to say that it's easy at all. Indeed, I'm helped because I have a friend who is a very successful investment banker. And he always says to me, Jeremy, well, I give my money once a year because that way, I'm going to get on and do it. And even so, my finger hovers above the enter key before I really press the transfer button. So what I would say, it is something that we're always working on. How do we get this right? I think if you've been a Christian for a number of years and you're actually starting to give away reasonably substantial amounts of money to different Christian activities, actually there's a lot more lasting satisfaction that comes from that than from having my new car, my bigger holiday villa. So it won't sound logical to those of you who are not Christians here, but it is the Christian experience that actually satisfaction. But at the margin, yes, it's challenging, which is why I say I had this slightly reverse satisfaction running a 25-year-old students.
I think you've spoken about it a bit in the talk, but how do you change that mindset to stop comparing yourself with peers around you that maybe are growing faster paces, or they've been promoted? How do you stop yourself from that comparison with peers and maybe a jealousy that often is in the sector of finance?
I hope I was honest enough earlier on to say, I'm not sure you've ever managed to stop it. I think you just suppress it. Because in the end, I think, I mean, the real question is, do I want to think about myself as God sees me? Or do I want to think about it as Josh sees me? And in the end, I'd rather think about what God thinks of what I'm doing than about what Josh thinks I'm doing. And God doesn't care whether I'm going to be promoted or not at all. And he's not going to give me any credit because I happen to be better than you or worse than you. I mean, I'm either in his camp and saved, or I'm not in his camp. It's as simple as that. And so it's really looking at where am I looking for my self-worth? Am I going to define it by the job which I do, about how my friends think of me, or how my competitors think of me, as you were saying, or I'm going to say through God's eyes?
Is being Christian in your profession a challenge in any way?
Yeah, I think being a Christian is, I think it's a challenge in almost any profession. Is it worse in finance? Yes, I think, well, actually, any lawyers here? One lawyer. You managed to get time to come here. I'm very impressed. I think the challenge is, if I look at all these sort of careers out there, it's probably the lawyers who work more hours than I ever see, and therefore that's a real struggle. Now, I talk to lawyer friends about how they're going to carve out time, so it's not all just work, but actually how they're going to carve out some time for Christian and gospel activities as well. I see a nod on the front table here. And I think it just varies. I've been lucky enough that when I was at KPMG, we wanted people to bring up their whole selves to the business. And because we thought it was that, and frankly, why would you stop being yourself when you got to the front door? So it made it relatively easy from that point of view, and strong values and culture. At the bank, we have strong values and culture. I have no problems, but they don't clash at all. I do just started to talk to the CEO about actually why we seem to want everyone to leave their faith at the door, whether they are Christian or Muslim or Hindu or humanist or anything else, because I think we should be bringing their whole selves to work. Did that answer that?
Yeah, can I ask a question? I think it's like, I really appreciate you talking about kind of, how you approach your faith and your story. I think it was very helpful. Just being very mindful that, we're millennials, and actually not millennials, we're Gen Z. We've been destroyed by TikTok and all these different things that shorten our attention span, and our brains are wired in such a way that we want things now.
Yeah.
And it seems that what you're talking about is sort of like, well, you have this pie in the sky or some kind of insurance. And I guess for most of us, we have at least 60 years before we need to worry about death and stuff like that. So to me, it doesn't sound very appealing and stuff like that. So what would you say to that as well?
Not to be provocative, I think you're a little bit misquoting me. If you think I certainly didn't mean to say it's pie in the sky. Because actually, I think that as I try to say, I get far more purpose and satisfaction from living a life that's got a Christian basis, with Christian relationships, and actually seeing God at work around some of the things that I do, than I think I would ever get with some of the other things. So I think what your question is based on the assumption that Christians can't have a good time today, and that actually not being a Christian is going to give you a better time. Now, it depends what you want, but I just want to challenge that assertion. I think, we've got, I'm just sort of, as you were thinking, and Christian friends around the place, so I think have very fulfilled, very satisfying lives today. But that's not what they do it for. That's a side benefit. I don't think it is. We're going to have an awful time now to have a good time in the future at all. Do I look that miserable?
Okay, so next question. How do you approach investment and financial planning for clients who have different moral or religious beliefs to you? Maybe this is earlier on in your career or now. Has this ever become a problem?
No, I don't. Well, I mean, clearly, we can't encourage clients to do anything which is illegal. But no, I mean, and what is interesting is is there's a lot of work done with clients. I'm really talking about the bank rather than insurer now. At the bank around what people want. And it was fascinating. I was at the Asia Philanthropy Summit in Singapore in September. I just had to be in the city for other things. It was UBS was one of the sponsors. So I joined the UBS table, talked to a lot of our clients, and fascinating people to make a lot of money, but really now thinking about how they're going to use that to good effect and impact on the world. So those are very sort of positive things that we can do. And particularly, I think with the whole question around ESG these days, I saw a poster for the London Students Sustainability Conference 2023 coming up, so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. But really interesting to see how people have changed with impact investing. So we're getting quite a lot of rich family offices together to think about how they can have a combined impact. So what's that look like? That looked like a first oncology fund to fund cancer research that couldn't be necessarily done elsewhere. And just on the second one of those, we just raised a fund to help with education of girls in India who are not getting proper provision. And we think there's some business cases behind that and we can actually mobilize capital to do that. But I mean, in the end, as long as the professional view is very clear. Here is we are going to help the client achieve what they define as success from their point of view.
Okay, next question. When you kind of had that transition from living a worldly life to a life that is devoted to God, and you had that change, what was the hardest thing, or was there something that was really hard to leave behind, or something that you really struggled to move on from in terms of lifestyle or drive or anything in particular?
I gave you deliberately a 40-year time span because I didn't want to have to tell you how much little progress I made between 1984 and 1987. Okay, because I think it is a struggle because we've all got our hearts and our minds telling us this is what we want to do, which doesn't always correlate with what the most sensible thing to do is, which is a bit like reading. So I think one of the biggest changes, actually the biggest changes was just a sense of joy and purpose, and really starting to have because it was looking at Christianity, understanding who the Lord Jesus was and what he did, and it was just a fascinating journey and meeting all sorts of new and different types of people. It required different disciplines and routines. So you can't just be a Sunday Christian. It meant taking time out, making some time out to read my Bible, and take some time out to pray. And I'm sort of, I struggle with that because I like to get up in the morning, get straight onto my emails, at 7:30 and get on with things. So I had to change quite a lot from that point of view. And we had just sort of a stage where children were arriving at the same time. So life was busy, carving it out, not easy, but very insuperable. So
okay, thanks. That's a good question. Do you think everyone needs religion to be happy, or live a successful life?
Well, it depends. No, I don't. Yeah, let me stop there. No, I don't. I think I've got lots of non-Christian friends. A lot of them are very happy now. Whether they will be as happy a year before they think they're going to die, I don't know. It's been interesting. I was talking to a friend the other day, and his mother had just died, and she had been an avowed hostile atheist until 24 hours before she died. And actually all her grandchildren gone in and prayed with her and told her how important it was to actually think about was their life after death and where was she going to be. And she became a Christian in the middle of the night. She then wrote in her hand, in a cross on her hand, because everybody else had gone to bed, and she didn't want the family to think that she hadn't become a Christian. So she actually wrote a cross on her hand, and she was alive in the morning, and then she died at lunchtime that day. So I think I think people do start at the end of their earthly lives to consider what does it mean in the future? And is there a heaven? Yes or no?
Yeah, and I think then a good follow-on question would be, you know, everyone's going into their busy careers now or approaching busy careers. Is Christianity not something we can think about later on in life when we do reach the end, or why should we consider it now as we go into our careers?
Well, I'm going to answer that, if I may, in two questions, mainly because it gives me a bit of time to think. Let me talk to Christians here first. And occasionally I get asked a question of, okay, I'm going into the city or wherever you're going into, and I think I'm going to put all my efforts into work because I want to become a partner in Freshfields, or I want to be an investment banker at Rothschild, or I want to be head of research at GSK, or whatever it's going to be. And I say to them, I'm not sure I can agree with you on that. And then they say, after 10 years, then I'll come out as a Christian. I just say, well, we have lots of people in this country who are never going to hear about Christianity unless somebody tells them. They're not going to hear a true version in school. They're not going to hear it in their workplace. So where are they going to hear it unless a friend just talks about it? And actually, next year, it might be the person sitting the desk next to you. God wants you to just have a conversation about it in a very easy way. So that's my answer to the Christians. Yeah, you can always put it off forever, can't you? But if you put things off forever, you will never do anything about it. If there is a God out there and he wants to have a relationship with you and he wants you to be part of his family on earth, then why wouldn't you want to do it now and be part of that and actually do some good things for him on just serve your own purposes?
Thank you very much. We have a question about the Mark's Gospel.
Yeah.
What was the most convincing or most enticing part of it that makes you recommend it to everyone here?
I think how long we got? I would say first, just the richness of it, the eyewitness detail that's around there. You sort of think that there is so much in there, and there are 4 different eyewitness accounts. If you look at the reliability of them in terms of transmission of that over the years compared to lots of stuff we've done in this history, it's very good indeed. And so it's a good read. But then you sort of think, I mean, frankly, there's the people in this close friend work called disciples. And frankly, they look, dare I say, so stupid at times, and they just don't understand and they seem to get it wrong. You really sort of think, now they're the people who write these books. They couldn't possibly have written this account. Or if you were going to make it up, then you wouldn't make it up because it doesn't show them in a good light at all. And so that, I think, is one of the things that actually convinced me that these are authentic.
Okay, thank you very much. I think let's open it up to the floor. I'm kind of getting lost in the Slido. So do we have any questions that anyone wants to ask?
And this is quite probably a question in Slido, but what do you think of the effective altruist idea that it is best to pursue earthly success to have the greatest impact, the least fortunate?
Sorry, can you say that again?
What do you think of the effective altruist idea that it's best to pursue earthly success that you can have the greatest impact for the least fortunate?
Okay, so you're talking about Sam Bankman-Fried, are you? Is that right? I mean, that was the sort of, wasn't he very much in that sort of mode? Was, you know, I'm going to build a financial empire because what I want to do is give it all away and be altruistic. I think there's lots of good that we as individuals can do in the world. If you think that humanity is going to be able to sort itself out, whether that's the problems of society or the problems of the world, I'm not sure where you're more optimistic than I am, but maybe that's age and stage. I'm probably more optimistic at that stage. So I think, is it good for us to be doing the best that we can and have impact here on earth? Yes, of course it is. But I think if you're a Christian, you don't believe that's the be all the end all, because actually we're going to have, there will eventually be a new world, which is where the real action is going to be. So I would say that being a Christian and the view that question you've just asked are not entirely alien to each other, but I think they've got different time horizons over which they operate. At least, and not all. So if anybody disagrees with me, by all means do push back. Yeah.
But should we be doing more as a society and people to dissociate the notion of success with ideas of financial gain and success? For example, a single mother who's working 3 jobs to care and support for her children is maybe not as upholded within society as someone who's made large amounts of money, but it doesn't get the same sort of respect and praise as someone who's made their money in lots of different ways. Should we rethink how we look at success in society to incorporate lots of different aspects of life?
So I think the question was, how does society evaluate success, and is it too focused on some things which I talked about? Is that
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to give you a Christian answer because it's a Christian talk, but actually I think that we'll come on some other things. But what do we know? What are we told by the Bible? We're told that everybody is made in God's image, which is actually a pretty fantastic thing, isn't it? We're told that everybody, so we're all made in the image of God, so therefore we should be treasuring people for who they are, not for anything else they've got. I think we're told that everybody's equal under the law, so everybody should have equal rights, things like that. And yet society seems to be wanting to judge us by some of the worldly criteria which I gave, as opposed to, you know, is this a person who is as valued as you or I am? It's just there had been very different circumstances. I don't think God sees that distinction at all. I think that's an artificial one that we've put in. And it is so easy for us to see what's on the outside, isn't it? As opposed to what's on the inside. And half the time you'll find that somebody like that is doing much more for their community than I do for my community, or those sorts of things. So I think starting to judge people by external appearances gets us into, is what we do all the time, okay? Because that's our human way of assimilating things. But I'm not sure it's healthy, and it's certainly not what I think a Christian point of view of people is. Does that answer the question a bit?
Yeah. What would you say some of the practical ways we can go about ensuring that we focus on inward beauty rather than outward appearance in our own lives?
I might turn that round and ask you how you think you could do it, but I actually think it means conscious efforts to treat people as people, no matter who they are, what their background is, and where they come from. So I don't really go back to KPMG anymore, but for the first 5 years, when I did, one of the security guards always said hello and shook me by the hand when I came in. Why? Because, you know, yeah, he happened to be one of the security guards, but I used to say hello to him the whole time because I didn't think he was any more important or less important than I was. So I mean, I just think, you know, treat people as people, and that's a good start.
Yeah, it's just like so obviously we're at LSE, you're constantly taught about, you know, it's all these big problems in the world, and you know, we've been taught by parenting or by our schools that, you know, there's so much promise, and you guys, there's so many big problems out there in the world. What is like one problem that you think like young people should work on that maybe hasn't gone like noticed as much? Yeah, like what for you is like the biggest thing that people can spend their lives working on?
I have no idea really how to start to answer that question, because it depends a bit about perspective, isn't it? And in what eyes are we looking through it? So, and can you actually have the tools to do it? Okay. Because I could think of 4 or 5 different things. I mean, what is the thing that could well tear societies apart over the next couple of decades? I suspect that inequality, social inequality and financial inequality is absolutely one of those. Okay. And it's been exacerbated by everything we've seen around quantitative easing, because for the last decade of cheap interest rates, anybody who's got money has got more money because of asset price inflation, and those who haven't got any better. And that's just going to tear our societies apart as the gap between the haves and the have-nots. I don't know if any of you saw the advertisement a couple of years ago, probably before COP24, and it said if you took the people who own, it was on the side of a big double-decker bus, and it said if you take the people who own the top 1% of all the world's wealth, and you took those, you could fit them all on this double-decker bus. So that was quite a sort of shocking statistic, but you know, it is huge, that sort of disparity that we've got. So I mean, now whether you can solve that, I don't know, but this is meant to be the LSE, so I guess if it can be solved, you know, that'd be one place to do it. I want to be careful what I say. I firmly believe that climate change is a man-made phenomenon. So carbon storage and removal technology, we're going to need a lot more of it than we've got today. So if you want to go and invent that, that would be really helpful. And that'd be really helpful to people in developing parts of the world. I mean, as on the insurance company, we're just in Asia and Africa. And so we see it all the time in terms of how climate change is starting to impact those sorts of things. So you could do that. You could make sure that a really good ethical framework for assessing AI systems, making sure that ChatGPT doesn't turn into uncontrolled generalized AI without any limits on it. That's quite a good thing to do for the sake of the world. I don't know, what other big things were you thinking of?
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of the stuff that you talk about. So yeah, I mean, like a lot of these are like very big topics, and it seems like a lot of them kind of have a root with sort of human nature. So what is inequality, the human desire to want to get as much wealth, the climate change, you know, screw your problem, if you die, that's your problem. Or like international tensions, like this dictator wants to get more land. It seems like it comes down to like something very fundamental, and it's very difficult to deal with. And it's sort of like at the end of the day, we sort of like put your hands up. And so yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of these problems have some kind of commonality, which is like us, and it can feel kind of helpless, and you kind of deal with this sort of thing. So how do you think about something like that?
Well, if we think in human planetary terms, I mean, the challenge is how many are we now? 8 billion? Is it? Somebody help me? Around about 8 billion, close enough, is that right?
Yeah.
8 billion, close enough. Everybody wants more food and better food. And yet, if you look at I think I'm right saying that the Himalayas actually provide water for 400 million people. no water sharing agreements. That's across 8 different countries. You know, if you look at what is happening in Africa at the moment, the Nile is the only river with water sharing resources, and even those are getting really strained. So, I mean, I think we're living in a world that is starting to creak, and the real question is, are we going to find man-made solutions for that? Is that what you're going to be in God's hands? So, work community is great, but it's going to be a challenge.
I wanted to like say what I thought about his question. But yes, what you said about like what the main thing we think we should focus on is, I think from a Christian perspective, as we like Christians, we try to follow Jesus Christ. And the reason, the Bible says the reason why he came was to seek and save those who are lost. And as you said, like there's one fundamental problem, and that's us. And like we're the ones who are lost. And I feel like when you come to Christ, that's like our salvation, getting to know God. He's the one that unifies all of these things. He's the one that has the power to overcome all of these problems. And the Bible also says it was Jesus who said that we should seek first the kingdom of God, and all other things will take care of us. So I feel like the fundamental problem, like me as a Christian, I believe is because the world lacks God. And that's basically what we're talking about here today. The fact that the world has one view, and then there's the view of the Bible. And I feel like our focus should also be to do what Jesus did, like to help others to know God and to know what our true, like what our identity is in him.
Yeah, great answer, much better than mine. Spot on.
Okay, perfect. We can have one last question quickly.
Yeah, okay, it's a bit of a vague and quite like a broad one, so take some time to think about it. But like from your whole life's journey, like if there was one piece of advice you could give to us who are like about to enter into the working world, like you know how to navigate, what would be?
Well, so I'm going to thank you. I'm going to give you 2 answers. Okay. Let me give you a second answer from the world of work. I'm not a great strategic planner. Okay, but what I would say is what's been helping me is be curious, because the world is changing very fast. And if you're starting to think about things that gives you opportunities to do all sorts of things. Take the opportunities which are in front of you. Don't spend too much time planning. It'll either happen or it won't. So enjoy it, do the best you can. And in the end, despite organisation politics, people who do good things get recognised and get on. So that's my second one. I just want to come back to where we were, though. We'll just talk about now, which is my biggest, I think, advice to everybody would be, it took me until I was 26 to really start to think about what the world meant in a bigger sense, and particularly what Christianity was. We've had a number of people who said, I wait till I'm 66 to do that. Don't. I think it is more important than that, because a Christian view of the world says that we're in a very broken world, and actually God's the only person who's going to put the world back together again at some stage. But in the meantime, we need to re-establish the relationships that we have between God and us. And the only way to do that is by believing that Jesus Christ came and did that for us, not because of any smart degree I've got, even if it's the best PhD in the world. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jeremy. I think let's give him a round of applause.
So yes, if you've been intrigued, talk to a Christian friend.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeremy. On each table, we have small cards, feedback. It's a small feedback card. If you want to put your contact details on to learn more about the CU or what we do, if you're interested in more questions, put them on there. Otherwise, we encourage everyone to just write 3 words of how you found today. Encourages us to hold more events like this and to improve them. So yeah, and then stay around, speak to the people on your table, finish the pizza, and enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you. So it's gonna happen the entire week, and every day is it gonna be your? I'll try to come at it. Yeah.
It's for our-
It's the Apple City. City is my name. SIR. City. IRI. Sorry, nice. Love it. Undergrad? Even first year.
Yeah, so has a bit more.
So are you all in society? Most of you are
Whatever you talk about.
even I'm very good. I'm a Hindu, so I'm very curious. Yeah. Yeah, I've been to a few in the faith center. It's good. It's a different approach altogether. Something to look back.
How
Think
often
about.
that like, so I think you like more picture that like. How much? Just
I
like.
usually come, one of your
I guess
friends
like a mix like.
on every
But I like we did a lot like one question.
yes, the few tiny one.
See my people are like. Just like it's fine.
Yeah. Feels like I'm very compared to all of you, so. And even if I'm passing by, I don't come even to do that. Stop, I haven't done that, and I answer the question. I'm just regular customer, I go every week, I'm very happy. So, yeah, you
Exercise that a little bit. I don't know how it was the question.
at least, when I have a lecture, one. Okay. See you now.
I don't know. Now it's gonna be dark. I guess it was. Better. It was crappy.